Hello, today we're going to talk about relationships between zeros and coefficients. Alright, the first thing we're going to talk about is a part of the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula is negative b plus and minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Now there's a part of the quadratic formula that you can use to be able to tell you how many solutions you're going to have. And that is what is under the square root. B squared minus 4ac. This is called the discriminant. Discriminant. Hope I spelled that right. Alright, and what the discriminant will tell you is how many solutions or how many zeros you will end up getting. So here, if you get a solution that's positive, alright, that means you're going to have two solutions when you solve it. Alright? So an example would be if I get, so when I solve all this and I get 4 is a positive numbers, that means I'm going to have 2 zeros in my answer. Alright? If I get a negative answer when I solve my discriminant, that's just putting in the B, the A, and the C. So if I get example negative 5, that means I have no solutions. And the last one is if I get 0 is answer, then that means I have one solution. You might wonder, since the shape of a quadratic formula is a parabola, how would I only get one solution? That means that the vertex actually goes on the x-axis. So the vertex is your 0. And how this would look. So if I get 0, my parabola will look something like that, where the vertex touches it and nothing else. Right? If I get a negative and that's no solutions, my parabola will be up here somewhere or at the bottom. These are just examples. And if I get positive, that means my parabola is going to touch the x-axis and give you 2 zeros. And that's how you use the discriminant. So you just plug it in. I'm going to do some examples on how to actually do it here in a second. It's not difficult, but it'll tell you how many answers you have. Alright, now for our first example. Alright, I'm going to go through a series of a bunch of stuff I'm going to find, but the first thing we're going to find is the discriminant. The discriminant, remember, is just what is underneath the square root in the quadratic formula. B squared minus 4ac. My A is equal to 2, my B is 0, and my C is 0. So when I plug this in, I get 0 squared minus 4 times 2 times 0. So I get 0 minus 0, which is 0. So because it's 0, that means I'm only going to get one solution. That means my vertex is going to be on the x-axis. All right, the next thing I'm going to find is the vertex. All right, to find the vertex, we're going to find the axis of symmetry first. So to find the axis of symmetry is negative b over 2a. So I put my b in, is 0 over 2 times 2, so 0 over 4, which is 0. Now I have my x point of my vertex. Now I take that and I plug it back in to 2x. So 2x squared, plug in 2 for it, which gives me 0. So my vertex is at 0, 0, or the origin. Does it open up or down? So to find out if it opens up or down, what you have to do is look at the leading coefficient. If the leading coefficient is positive, that means it's gonna open up, smiley face up. So this leading coefficient is 2, so it's gonna open up. All right, if it was negative, it'd be opening down. All right, and the last thing is we're gonna graph it. All right, to graph it, I like to do it a certain way. You can do it however you want. You basically know exactly what it looks like right here. You know the basics of it. You know it's going to open up. You know the vertex is going to be at 0, 0. So what I like to do is I always choose the same exact points. When I do this, I do -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. Anytime I'm trying to graph a parabola or a quadratic function, those are the numbers I use. I like to use numbers on the negative and the positive side. So when I plug in -2 here, I get 8. When I plug in -1 to this, I get 2. That's going to be 0 because that's my vertex. Plug in 1, I get 2. Plug in 2, 4, 8. All right. It's looking positive here because it should be a mirror image. So it's 0, 0, -1, 2, 1, 2. I'm not going to graph the other points. I'm good. And that's how you graph it. So all this information can be found just from this. All right. I know there's only one solution. I can find my vertex, whether it's up or down, and I can graph it. All right, here's our next example, our last example, x squared plus 4x. My a is 1, my b is 4, and my c is 0. So now I'm going to plug this in to find out how many solutions I'm going to have. All right, this comes in handy every once in a while, just so you can save yourself some time. So 16, so I have one, or since it's positive, I'm going to have 2 solutions. All right? So I know my vertex is not going to be on the x-axis. I come here. Now I need to find out what my vertex is. To find my vertex, I have to find my axis of symmetry first. So I have x equals, my axis of symmetry is always going to be x equals. It's a vertical line. So I do -4 over 2 times 1, -4 over 2. So x equals -2 is my axis of symmetry. I take the -2 and I plug it back into the equation to find my y. So my y equals -2 squared plus 4 times -2. That gives me 4, that gives me -8, -4. So my vertex is in -2, -4. Does it open up or down? Well, my leading coefficient, it's always the one in front of the x squared, is positive, so it's going to open up. And the last thing I'm going to do is graph it. I'm going to use -2. Well, now that I know my vertex is at -2, I'm going to use some different points. Because I want it on both sides of my vertex, I use -4, -2, and 0. Just for time's sake. You always want points on both sides of it to make sure it's good enough. Technically, since that's two-way, it should be the same exact number. So I plug in -4 here, so -4 squared plus 4 times -4 gives me 16 minus 16, which is 0. That does not seem right, but we'll go with it. I know -2 is -4. If I want to plug it back in, I could. and then I plug in 0, and I get 0. So yep, that is correct. So -2, -4, 0, 0, and -4, and there you go. How I knew that I wanted to use 0 here is because there's difference of 2 there and there's a difference of 2 there. So these two answers on that side should be exactly the same. And it does open up, which is correct. I confirm my vertex here, and it has 2 solutions. So I know that is accurate. All right, this has been relationships between zeros and coefficients. Hope it helped. Good luck.